for making this a successful event that it was. I also wish to say thank you most kindly to my staff at the Embassy of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Please stand and be recognized, staff members. Please stand. Mr. Connolly, Kanita, thank you. And I'm sure Ambassador Ramden will be paying thank yous to your staff as well. I would not make them stand. Thank you. Again, to Howard University, thank you for your presence here in terms of students and learning from it, as well as the medical booth that was provided outside. We had some very, very interactions in the panels we had this morning, and what was of great interest to me was really understanding what is being done across the hemisphere. We heard it from 5 ministers of health themselves, from the use of ICTs to training to fortifying their legislative agendas, to bringing it down to the level of community engagement. I've heard a country taxing 8% for every 100 grams of fat in food. So there are many examples that are being actioned across the hemisphere that we can learn from institution. The institutions present here, we heard on trade policy formulation, interministerial approaches to dealing with the issue, and the need for really having a policy at a national level on nutrition. I think that's also critical. We heard that from civil society. It was wonderful to hear the work that's being done in terms of pushing the MDG framework for NCDs and benchmarking that against national targets, so at least there's something to work towards. From the private sector, we heard the efforts at awareness building and the delivery aspects of in treatment with using partnerships, and thank you for that, Medtronics, for that sort of insight. Academia, we heard a very good example. Yesterday, I was at Howard University along with my minister and his team, and we toured the simulation lab that Dr. Frederick spoke of, and it was a piece of technology to behold. And that, to me, represents great efforts at incorporating ICTs as we deal with this crisis that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, we heard a very interesting and a welcome thought this morning from the director of the Pan American Health Organization, which is really about us thinking about establishing an inter-American task force. So what the concept is to look at the World Bank, to look at the Inter-American Development Bank, to look at the Organization of American States, to look at the Pan American Health Organization, and how can we get together, have a meaningful conversation, and bring this down to pragmatic terms. So I am very much looking forward in my capacity as ambassador and permanent representative of Trinidad and Tobago to the United States and the Organization of American States, Ambassador Randon, for us to really have that conversation sooner rather than later. It's time we really rid ourselves of the bureaucratic particulars. It is our moral imperative to do so. We are all leaders in this room, and our responsibility is to leave the world a better place than we met it. And it's very healthy when we can all galvanize around a theme and try to leave this world a better place than we met it. It's our responsibility to do so. Thank you most kindly. Thank you.
The good thing is that you have to stay here before we go for lunch, because I have still to say some things. On behalf of the Organization of American States, thanks to you all for being here. Thanks to all the speakers for their contribution. I believe we had a very useful exchange. We learned a lot, we shared a lot. I think all that this can lead to is more action. I'm a person that likes to do concrete things. So I'm going to start with the proposal which is in the document which you have received, or if you don't have it, feel free to give us your email address. We'll send it electronically to you. But the proposal in that document of an inter-American agency or inter-American agency as a task force for dealing with NCD, to promote collective action, for consultations and so on, led by the Pan American Health Organization. I believe that within 2-3 weeks, we're going to meet with PAHO to flesh this out and to find a way to launch it as soon as possible. That's the only way to do these things, to work on it immediately and to do things. I think the agenda is very clear, so we don't need to have a long debate about what such a task force should do. It's about the mechanics of how we're going to operate. So my commitment is there as OAS to work on it, and we will talk with Dr. Etienne, as soon as possible, how we can bring this together. 2-3 weeks maximum. The other thing is, which I heard, is another initiative which I'm suggesting, and this may be taken up in the task force at some point. As CARICOM has a wellness day, why not expand that wellness attitude, wellness ID concept to the whole of the Americas? A wellness day for the Americas. It would engage all interested parties hemispherically. And I think from what we have heard from the several ministers in Latin America, is clearly that they are on the same track to organize these things, to be involved with the community. So maybe this is something which we want to take on board. I know there was an idea about having a resolution on NCDs, but maybe this could be incorporated into such a resolution. Third point is that as we committed to co-partner with Trinidad and Tobago and the private sector on this, we have to keep this high on the agenda. And I mean, not so much high on the health agenda alone, but on the political agenda. And this is what I can commit to, is to keep it on the political agenda of the member states so that they, on a regular basis, receive the technical data, understand what is the consequence, because that is all what politicians and legislators want to hear, is what will it cost? What will it create in terms of an impact, in terms of financial burdens and so on. And I think it's up to the specialized agencies, the civil society working in this area, to sensitize legislators, especially legislators and government officials, about the cost, because that is really what they're interested in to know, because that's when they start moving, if there's a problem in a society developing. Now, so I hope that by keeping this high on the agenda in the OAS, we can establish that framework of mind that we need to pay attention. And the final point before lunch is this multi-sectoral approach, and I like the challenge which James put out here, which was very feasible, or not feasible in fact, because of the absence of the other stakeholders in this process. I fully agree that this is like dealing, for a long time we dealt with environment as solely an environmental issue, a technical issue. I find this NCD issue as the same category. We should have a multi-faceted approach. It is multi-sector. That means we need to engage others in it. And NCDs, in a way, from a perspective of creating the best circumstances in society, is possibly a cross-cutting issue to be dealt with. And so all the examples given in terms of how to engage those who may seem to be far away from this agenda, we need to clarify this, and we need to get them on board. Ownership and partnership with not only the private sector, but with government agencies among themselves in the first place. I also want to thank Medtronic and General Electric for their contribution. I'm just going to ask you to continue doing that, so I count that next year when we organize such an encounter, you will finance equally. I thought that they would make that commitment today, but they did not, but I'm committing you to that. Two is to thank Trinidad and Tobago for that initiative, but also that determination to keep it on the agenda, and your team, which I mentioned this morning already. The OAS is committed, and it demonstrates that commitment by working, hand in hand with private sector and governments to facilitate these debates. Shelley, Adam, and Mariette have been working on this, but I don't want to forget the technicians who have been facilitating our exchange here, conference services, technical facilities, and all others, including interpreters, who were very helpful in making sure that we all understand what we are saying. So thank you all very much. On behalf of all of us, we invite you to a healthy luncheon, I understand, downstairs in the Patio Azteca. Thank you all very much. Have a great day.